One thing to get to, Major, with our next guest, Jake Sherman, who peruses that fish playlist with a fine-tooth comb, and Anna Palmer, who I think officially is now long-suffering, here, co-authors of the Politico Playbook. Great to have you guys here on set. To Major's point, it was a day for Donald Trump that sort of echoed a day that Hillary Clinton had on the stump, answering a lot of questions from their press corps on their planes, no less. Quite a Labor Day for them, planes passing on tarmacs. I wonder right now, if this is the, hey, everybody now is checking in on the election cycle, what do you think if it's possible that somebody has not been paying attention at this point? They're opening up the papers today. What are they seeing?
I think they're seeing two deeply unpopular candidates. I don't put too much in any single national poll. I think that this race is definitely going to tighten. The best way
it is tightening,
right.
Really.
And the best way to think of it is that the post-convention bounce that Clinton got is officially gone. But if you look at kind of the state-by-state polls, they're tightening, but Clinton is still ahead in most every important state.
Yeah, and I would say, I mean, if you really look at the people who are just tuning in now, I don't know who those people are. I feel like if you're Hillary Clinton, you spend all this money on ads, you're pretty disappointed by that. But I do think you saw two candidates on the defensive, right? You had Hillary Clinton for the first time 275 days without going and talking to the press and going on her plane, kind of taking 20 minutes, and it was all about what's happening with the Russian hack, what's happening with your emails. I mean, it was really unable to get on the offense there. Yeah,
I want to actually play a little bit of that back and forth with reporters and get your thoughts on the other side.
63 days to go until Election Day. And you mentioned Donald Trump in this country, Secretary Clinton, and people know he wants to build a wall, tough on immigration. I'm curious, when a voter is asked what Hillary Clinton stands for, with 63 days to go, what do you hope they'll say?
I hope what they'll say is that I stand for the kind of future that will help them and their families. We want to get the economy to work for everyone, not just those at the top. The best I can tell is Donald Trump is for building a big wall, which we now know after his unfortunate trip to Mexico. The Mexicans have said they're not paying for it.
And so there again, we see a pivot. I wonder, when you look at the month that Donald Trump has had, a complete personnel overhaul at the senior level of his campaign, GOP support throwing in behind Hillary Clinton. You mentioned her ads, 5 times as many ads, millions more cash on hand. And yet, we are seeing essentially a statistical dead heat right now. Is it because the zero-sum nature of this political season, make this about a referendum on my opponent, sort of demands that there can't be too big a lead to be had here?
I mean, I think what part of it is these are two candidates that are already defined by a lot of people. They're well known, right? Her unfavorables are so high that it's really hard to kind of get momentum. You saw she said, I'm for the economy, to get that working, but then immediately pivots. She's not talking about her 5-point plan or anything like that. It's really kind of choose me because Donald Trump's so bad.
Yeah. And if you talk to Republicans in Washington, I think what they've said to us is that any other candidate out of the 17 that ran for president would be beating her by 10 points. And you see that in some of the surveys across the country. But still, it's a pretty divided country, and I think this thing is only going to get closer.
In terms of trust, then, the Clinton campaign certainly answering questions that Donald Trump has raised about her burgeoning email scandal still. With regard to payment made to a group supporting the Florida Attorney General, when the AG's office was considering whether or not to open an inquiry into Trump University, certainly an appearance of impropriety here, if only inspiring a question of what intent is. But what will this mean for Donald Trump if it sticks?
I mean, I think this is kind of the pay to play, right? You've seen both campaigns hurl it back and forth, whether it's what happened with the Clinton Foundation, what happened with Bill Clinton getting on a board for a nonprofit for colleges. I think for Trump, he's going to have to answer the question. And the real thing is, are any emails going to come out? Is there going to be some kind of underlayer scandal of somebody at Trump Inc. going to Bondi and saying, don't pursue this?
I don't think any of these mini scandals add to anything. I think, as you said, these candidates are so well defined. This, I really do think, and I think people we talk to in D.C. think, this is going to come down to the fact that Hillary Clinton has actually invested in a campaign infrastructure. Donald Trump has not. And Donald Trump thinks that he can win the election, and maybe he's right, it's too early to say. He thinks he can win the election by holding large-scale rallies and betting that the public is sick of establishment politicians, especially the Clintons. Donald Trump has one office in Florida. That's stunning. This is a state that he needs to win to become president, and he has decided consciously not to invest in it. So
but he does have one in Israel as well.
He has
so
a couple
don't worry, the expats in Israel are going to vote for him.
And so, there are two ways to see that. On the other hand, then if you're a Hillary Clinton supporter, you're thinking, how is my candidate? How has she not already put this away? And I think it also perhaps gets us to 3 nights in particular. She has said that she has been looking forward to these nights for months and months. Certainly for a man who, if nothing else, seems to understand the zeitgeist and the power of that little box. What impact do you expect the debates to have?
I think the first debate is going to have the biggest impact. It is all on the line for Donald Trump. You saw him when he did go down to Mexico. He kind of came off as more presidential, maybe less so when he was in Arizona, kind of going back to his talking points. But if he can come across as someone who's serious, I think that all of a sudden Hillary Clinton's going to be very nervous.
And I think that's an interesting point. The expectations are set so low. Partially because he's saying pretty plainly, I'm not going to prepare for this debate that 60 million people are going to watch. So I think if he does a passable job, the public and the polls will indicate that he has exceeded expectations and has done well. But I just think in these debates, if you talk to people who have been involved in them, especially I'm recalling a recent conversation with someone who worked for Paul Ryan, who said that they went to a hotel and prepared for a whole weekend. Mitt Romney went to Woodstock, Vermont, where a friend had a house and prepared. I think these are events that you really need to be comfortable with the substance, and Donald Trump is not comfortable with the substance.
And I would say, this is very different than the primary debates when you had 12 people on stage. You can kind of get your barb in and then hold the fire. I mean, these are going to be things where they're going to be held to what is the actual substance of what you...
And speaking to Dan Senor, who helped prep both Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan, he said, 90 minutes is a long time, and as somebody who was there at those debates, you saw Donald Trump, he saw Donald Trump growing a bit weary again when he was one of 12, 13, 14 people on a stage. That 90 minutes under those Klieg lights with, what do we think? 100 million people? How many? The numbers are going to be buffo.
Staggering.
But he also can't say, I'm going to do it and it's going to be so great, whatever that issue is at that time, because the moderator is going to say, okay, well, tell us. And he can't really obfuscate at that point. He has to provide some answer, or we think, who knows?
Okay, if that's when the answers get provided. All right, we should mention, this is the beginning of a beautiful relationship between all of us. Starting this week, CBSN will be doing these weekly political segments with Anna and Jake, Monday and Friday mornings. Anna, Jake.
Bookend your weeks.
Authors of the Politico Playbook. As always, guys, appreciate your time.
Thanks so much.